Welcome everybody to Build 2022. My name is Michael Aldridge. I'm Program Manager for Access.
I'm Courtney Owen. I am a Senior Software Engineer for the Access team.
And I'm Nathan Helgren, a Program Manager for Dataverse and the Power Platform.
Together we're here and excited to show you over the next 45 minutes how the future of Access is bright, and a totally new feature release this month is going to unlock new capabilities for Access customers with the fast-growing Microsoft Power Platform. Today we announced some really exciting news, the launch of the new Access Connector for Dataverse and Power Platform. And it is now generally available as part of the Microsoft 365 monthly channel. Over the next 45 minutes, we're going to explain what this new capability can mean for you and the millions of Access customers that are using Access every day. And we're going to show you a couple of demos of these new scenarios and what it enables. And finally, we're going to invite you and your organization to evaluate and deploy this new exciting Access feature. So let's set some context for what Access customers have been asking for and why we built this. First, they were looking for better ways to deal with security and compliance. And they were looking to upload Access data and apps into the cloud, have mobile and tablet scenarios, and be able to actually integrate with PowerApps itself. And these were both commercial as well as consumer customers. We can see a huge trend in the marketplace with developers and the growth of low-code, no-code tools. 1/3 of developers globally are using these kinds of tools, and it's growing in popularity. It's particularly pronounced in places like North America and Asia. This has been very attractive to less experienced developers, and the tools that they're using are predominantly in a tight race between Microsoft PowerApps and Google. However, when we look at what's happening in the largest enterprise developers, PowerApps has made huge strides, and Nathan's going to tell you a little bit about it.
That's true, Michael. In the same study from SlashData from last August, it shows that Microsoft PowerApps is the clear leader for large enterprises. Once you get over 500 users within the organization, you see that Microsoft and the Power Platform has a larger share over Google. And that's because of the interoperability between all of the Microsoft applications and the way that it works with your general infrastructure.
Okay.
And also, the analyst community has shown that Microsoft PowerApps and the Power Platform is a Magic Quadrant leader. So let's talk about the Power Platform briefly for those of you who aren't familiar with it. The Power Platform is a low-code, no-code platform that allows you to build on top of your data and achieve a lot of different aspects of business that you want to use with it. For example, we start off with a PowerApps license, and PowerApps allows you to build applications on top of your data. It includes Dataverse, which is a platform that stores your data and offers a lot of great functionality. It's also the backend for Dynamics 365, so it's well in use within the community. In addition to PowerApps and Dataverse, you also have the ability to have Automate, which allows you to build automated workflows to take your business to the next level by reducing manual processes and steps. Those all come together in a single license for PowerApps. However, you can also add additional features on top of that. You have Power BI, which provides great business analytics and charts and graphs and other functionality. And also, another feature that's really popular right now, the Power Virtual Agent, which allows you to build chatbots on top of your data that can respond to customer questions and do other things such as route cases and do other processes. So it's really kind of a great system when you pull it all together.
Thanks, Nathan. So you can see that with the power of the Power Platform and Dataverse, we have a really great opportunity to address some of the things that our customers have asked for and really create new capabilities embracing the cloud. And today we are, as we said, announcing the general release of the connector for Dataverse and Power Platform. This adds to the cloud connectivity we already have with both SharePoint and SQL Server. So it gives customers a breadth of options they can consider depending on what's important and critical for their organization. Access customers through our customer feedback channels have told us over the past few years they want to see stronger cloud-enabled capabilities with their Access solutions. They want to see hybrid solutions for their organizations that keep the value and ease of use of Access, but offer new capabilities in the cloud. Some of their top requests were where they needed to have the ability to have mobile front-end data entry solutions and the ability to integrate with Teams, and it's over 250 million users. Then they wanted to enable different front ends to have real-time sharing and editing of Access data in the cloud. And finally, most importantly, enterprises really need security and compliance where role-based security with AAD is critical. Today's Dataverse Connector announcement helps meet all of these needs. Now, some of you may remember that we actually announced the public preview at Ignite. And here are some of the improvements that we have made based on the customer feedback we got. First of all, we've added big int, which is large number as a data type support. We've also had many performance improvements, including creating table data, importing to Dataverse, queries, open and edit operations in Access for data stored in Dataverse, and we fixed a myriad of bugs related to usability and accessibility.
So now I'd like to talk a moment about how Access and the Power Platform work better together. Whenever you have data from one system that you want to move to another, for example, Access to Power Platform, one thing that you have to take into mind is how long it's going to take you to do that data migration. In the past, people have had to do this manually, which means that when they want to take their Access data and put it in Dataverse, they first have to go and create their tables, and then create their columns, and create their relationships, and they have to do all this manually before importing the data. And we've heard from people, depending on the size of their data, it could take between hours to days to get that process done. With the new feature that we have, it takes barely minutes to set up that migration to occur, and then at that point you just have to wait for the data to migrate over. So it's actually a much faster method of getting the data from Access into Dataverse. Additionally, on top of that, you get to keep using your existing Access interface, which is a very good option because people who want to use a hybrid solution to have Access and mobile, that works perfectly for them. Or in addition, if you're looking at moving the data over to Dataverse and you have time that you need to take to learn how to build an app, your Access front end also works perfectly, and you can continue to use your Access queries and your Access forms, and everything works as it did with no business interruption whatsoever. And finally is the point I made before, expanding your data scenarios. You're able to do things with data that you just couldn't do before if you have PowerApps licenses or Power Platform licenses. You can build automated workflows, you can build those virtual agents, you can do a lot of different functionality that's built in natively to PowerApps that may not be available in Access today. So you can use that as an example to use some of your Access functionality you have now, but just add new capabilities to that data. And now I'm going to hand it over to Courtney, who's going to give us a demo of the migration functionality.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I'm going to show you how we export data from an Access database out to Dataverse, and how we use that data in Dataverse in our Access forms and reports and linked tables. And everything will remain in sync. So for the sake of this demo, imagine, if you will, that Nathan and Michael and I own a small boutique hotel in Seattle called the Space Needle Inn. And our cleaning staff has historically used paper forms that they carry along with them when they clean rooms to mark what supplies need to be refilled, any notes they have about the rooms that the management should know. And this is a very cumbersome process and labor intensive in that their paper notes have to be converted into input manually into the Access databases. So what we're going to do here is we are going to export our Access tables to Dataverse, and then we are subsequently going to create a mobile app that the cleaning staff can use on their mobile phones as they clean the rooms to do all the stuff that they previously would have done on paper forms. So we're going to start out with 3 different tables here. We have a carts table, and in this carts table we have a variety of data types that we're using. We have a value field lookup, we have a numbers field, we have a date time field, and this basically is the table that captures data for the carts that the cleaners use when they clean the rooms, and the supplies that they have on those carts. The next table here we have is the room check table, and this table encapsulates all the notes that the cleaners make as they clean the rooms. And so they will check off here whether they refilled the towels, whether they changed the toiletries, checked the linens, and any notes they might have. And here you'll see we have lookup fields again. We actually have some yes, no fields here, and we have long text fields here. Finally, we have a rooms table. And the rooms table is largely what management uses to keep track of what bed types are in the rooms, whether the room is ready, whether it's vacant. And once again here we have different field types. So the reason that we want to show you these different field types is so we can show you that, hey, you can easily export your data to Dataverse and it'll just be supported. There are some field types that are not supported, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is close down these tables. And then we're going to export them to Dataverse. So I'm just going to select one of the tables here. Now, as I mentioned, these tables are all related. So when I click External Data, Dataverse, and I select one of the tables, we're smart enough to know that this table has tables that it's related to. And so if you look here under Export Related Tables, you will see that the room check is also related to the carts and rooms table. If you don't want to export those related tables, you can deselect them. But for the sake of this demo, we're going to export them all. You'll see some other options here as well. You'll see link to the Dataverse table after exporting. And what this will do is create a linked table. There's also a couple options up here for exporting to a Teams environment, which we'll talk about a bit later, or exporting to a standard Dataverse environment. And so we're going to export to the standard Dataverse environment. Finally here, there's a checkbox to open the tables in the browser so you can see your tables in Dataverse after the whole operation is done. So we'll go ahead and check that as well. We're going to click Next here. And what you see here is it says Validation Complete. Well, the reason it says Validation Complete here is because we did some work behind the scenes to ensure that all the data types that you are trying to export to Dataverse are indeed supported in Dataverse, and that the field ranges that you are using for your data are indeed supported in Dataverse. As I mentioned, there are some field types that are not yet supported in Dataverse. One of them is rich text. We're hoping to have support for that in the future, near future, I hope. And if you were to have a rich text field, for example, in your table, our validator would capture that. And it would tell you, hey, we have a rich text field here. Would you like to proceed with exporting? If you say yes, we'll strip that field from the exported table. It will remain in your local table, however. So we don't have any unsupported fields here. We don't have any unsupported data. We're good to go. So we're just going to say OK. And then we're going to start the export operation. And so the export operation is done. So we're going to click Close here. And what you're going to do is you're going to see the linked tables were created here. And so we have a carts link table, a room check link table, and a rooms link table. And then if we go over to the browser here, which was opened at the end of the export operation, you'll see we have a carts table here. And if we open that up, for example, and we look at the data, we'll see all that data that you exported from Access. So pretty cool. So you've got your data from Access out to Dataverse. Now the next thing you'd like to do for your cleaning staff is to create a mobile app so that they can go from room to room with their phone and fill out digital forms rather than having to do things through a paper form. So it's super easy to create an app, and let's walk through that process. Go home, click on Dataverse. So now we have all the tables in our environment listed here. And what we're going to do is a really simple mobile app. And we're going to create a mobile app based on the room check table. And so we'll connect to the table here, and then we'll do some customization of the form that will be the basis for your mobile app. You can do a tremendous amount of customization. You can make your mobile app look super snazzy, but for the sake of time here, we are just going to update the edit form. And I am just going to change the background of the form and give it our custom Seattle Space Needle in look. And then I am going to edit some of the fields on here and make them more meaningful to our cleaning staff. So let's add some additional fields here. We're going to add the cart field, the room numbers field, and we'll add towels checked and toiletries checked. And then we're going to remove a couple fields as well and move them around. Let's move cleaner name up here, and we'll move checkout complete. ID, we'll go ahead and remove that. We'll remove this field. And let's just call it a day at that. So we've got our form here. Now what we want to do is save it, and we're going to publish it out. And so we can then use it on our mobile app. And I'm going to go ahead and share this with Nathan as well. And voila, we're done. So a couple other things that I want to show you here before we use the mobile app is I'm going to go in here into the link table, for example, and I'll go into the room check table here. And we'll make a little note change on here for this particular check, and we'll just say, this room has rats. We're not a particularly hygienic hotel, but come stay with us sometime. And if we go back to our tables here, and we should automatically see that update in Dataverse. Rats. So you can see how we can easily keep our data in sync from Access to Dataverse. Now let's show you how you would use the mobile app to do that. So I've created the app, and I've told my workers about the new app, and so I had them download PowerApps on their mobile phone. That's available in the Apple Store and the Android Store. And once they open up PowerApps on their phone, and they see the Space Needle In app in there. And so the cleaners, when they want to clean a room, they can click on the app, go into a new form, and make notes about the room. So for example, here, we're just going to change the date the room was cleaned. We'll just add in some arbitrary date there. And then that we check the linens, yes. And we'll change the cleaner name to my name, and we'll say check. And that creates a new record. So now we're back in Dataverse, and I just submitted a new record via the mobile app. So what we're going to do is refresh our data here. And you now see there's 6 records here. That's the new one I just added. Now we can also take that a step further and go back to Access. And I will just refresh the data here. And you see we now have 6 records here as well. So everything remains in sync from your mobile phone to Access to Dataverse. And it's all super simple. That's about all I have, Nathan.
Thanks, Courtney. So here's a quick recap of what we just did. You saw the data in an Access database, and we used the data validator with the system to make sure that the data is going to be able to be moved to Dataverse, and we processed the migration. Once that data was migrated into Dataverse, now every time you attempt to use your Access form or your Access queries, it's going to retrieve that data from Dataverse, but it's still going to act as if it was in Access. So the users will be able to have the exact same experience. But now that it lives in Dataverse, at the same time, you can have mobile apps that are built for your phone or your tablet or your computer and use that same data at the same time it's being used by Access. So it gives us a wide variety of usage capabilities. Now, one thing I want to talk about here also is Dataverse for Teams. Dataverse for Teams is another flavor of Dataverse and PowerApps that's available to users of Microsoft Teams. One thing that is a little bit different between the two systems are some of the capabilities and volume of data you can store. When you're migrating your data from Access, you can choose, I want to either go to a full version of Dataverse or Dataverse for Teams. But you can't migrate the same data to both places because they would be in two different databases. So you want to really stick with one when you choose them. So I want to touch a couple high-level points that may be of interest to you in making your decision. So Dataverse for Teams is included with a Teams license, so you don't have any additional licensing you have to have in order to build your apps. However, any app or business flow you build only lives inside of the team where you built it, and only people inside the team can use it. So that is a limitation that you have to be aware of. Also, Dataverse for Teams has a limit of 2 GB of storage, which is the same as Access today. So that may not be too much of an issue for you. If you're looking for pro dev capabilities, some of the functions that you have available to the full version of Access you cannot accomplish inside of Teams. For example, you don't have direct API access to be able to make specific calls through code or other functions. Where if you go for the full version of Dataverse, it is an additional license you have. But your storage starts at 10 GB of storage and can be increased beyond there if you need additional storage. You have the ability to do all kinds of pro dev functionality and build your own code and have high code solutions as well as the low code solutions. And when you make an app, you can share it to anybody who has a Dataverse license within your organization. Or if you're using it through a portal, you can use it for any external users as well. So now we have one more demo that Courtney's going to show us on utilizing the same data inside of Dataverse for Teams.
Okay, so as Nathan mentioned, we can export to both Dataverse and Teams. And I already went through the process of exporting to Dataverse, and it's very much the same process as exporting to Teams, so I'm not going to do that again. So what you're going to see here is we already have linked tables, carts for Teams, room check for Teams, and rooms for Teams. And these are the exact same tables that I used in the previous demonstration, but I just exported them to Teams. Now, in Teams, I was subsequently able to create an app, just as I was in the PowerApps platform, for my Teams environment. Once again, I don't want to walk through that process again because it's very much the same process I showed you before. But as you see, we're in Teams here. And you see, I have an app here called the Seattle Inn Room Check app. And I can go in here in Teams, and I can add a new record, or I can edit an existing record. So let's go in and add a new record. And we will say G. Hopkins, and room 102, and towels checked, yes. Yes, yes. Checkout complete. And we'll just leave that, and all's well. And so now we have a new record there. Now we're going to go back over to Access here and look at our room check for Teams table. And we'll go ahead and refresh this here. And we see a new record there, and the note says, all's well. So you can see it's similar to the demo I showed you earlier, but you're doing everything in the context of Teams. We did the form design for the Teams app within Teams, and we actually do the form editing within Teams. And then Access will pick up those edit changes. And everything is all in sync. Everything is all integrated. So that's about all for the Teams demo. Back to you, Nathan.
Thanks, Courtney. So what we just did was very similar to the first demo. The data originally existed in Access, but it was moved to Dataverse. That data in Dataverse can now be used by Access forms and Access queries, just as it was before. But now that data lives inside of Dataverse for Teams, which means that inside of Teams, you can build team apps where anybody in your team can access that data, add records, etc. That gives us new opportunities to use our data in different ways than we did before. So I've got a few other pieces of information I want to share. So as Courtney mentioned just a few moments ago, that there are some data types and data sizes in Access that aren't fully supported in Dataverse. But when we use the Access Connector for Dataverse, we're able to detect if those data types or data sizes are not going to be able to be moved over to Dataverse. And that's what you saw with the validator screen he showed you. So I'd like to go over a little bit about some of our supported types and maybe some types that are coming in the future. So as you notice, we have a list here of types at the very top that are fully supported. You can utilize these in any way that you use them today. When you look at other options such as long text, or we have integers or decimals, those have limits in access that are larger than what Dataverse can handle. So what we do is we do a detection to see, are you sending more data than Dataverse can accept? An example, if you look at long text in Access allows you to do 1 gigabyte of data in a field. And within Dataverse, you can do 1 megabyte of data. Now, the number of people using a gigabyte of data in a field are probably not that high. So the truth somewhere between how much data we really need is someplace between 1 megabyte and 1 gigabyte. So right now, as you go to migrate your data, if it exceeds a megabyte, it will warn you and say, this column has data in it that is going to exceed that value. So let's not migrate this row if you want to move forward. And that data will be saved in Access for you. We're also gathering that data so we know that a number of people have used data that exceeds 1 megabyte. We'll see what the real amount is, and we may be able to increase that value to meet what the needs are later. And similar functions are being done for integer and decimal, etc., when we have a value that exceeds what we can support. Coming up in future updates, we're going to have rich text support. So you'll be able to migrate over your rich text data formatting, and then once it's in Dataverse, we'll be able to show that as rich text. We also have some future functions that we hope to be supporting, which are number single and number doubled. Those are larger scientific numbers that Dataverse does not have the capacity to fully support. So we've prevented you from migrating that data from one side to the other to prevent data loss. However, if you don't need those numbers to be a full floating point number and you're okay using decimal, you could convert those in Access first and migrate those over now if you'd like to do that. So it's fully your choice. Also, calculations are something that we couldn't easily move over because of differences in programming languages, but we're working on that as a future feature as well. If you go to the QR code here, you'll be able to find a website that has all of the information about every data type we have and all of the limits, and it will give you enough information to make your decisions and be prepared for your data migration. So what happens when you're trying to migrate this data that may not meet the size or type requirements? What will happen is you'll start your migration from Access, and then the validator will catch the data and take a look at it. And what the validator will do is make sure that you meet those requirements, and if it does, then you will do the migration that we've seen up until now. If you're unable to meet that requirement, then you have a choice to make. You can choose to move forward with the data that is able to be migrated. And what will happen is it will move all the data that can meet the requirements into Dataverse, and then all the data that cannot meet the requirements will stay in Access, and we will generate an error table that tells you all of the tables or columns that were not able to be migrated, so it's easy for you to find. Or the other option is you can just cancel out and not perform the migration as well. So a couple things I want to cover here, which is around how we can compare the Power Platform and Dataverse to SQL. This question comes up a lot from folks who say, I already use SQL, what do I need to move to Dataverse? No. If you're using SQL and love SQL, we love SQL. The back end of Dataverse stores its relational data in SQL. So that we have no issue with people staying on SQL. It's a fantastic product. Dataverse provides an additional option for you if you want to look at a place to put your data that isn't Access, but that may not be SQL. A couple of reasons why you might want to consider Dataverse is you don't have to hire a DBA. The ability to manage that data is handled by you using the functionality and by Microsoft, who handles all of the uptime and the disaster recovery and all of the key functionality there that a DBA would normally have to handle. Also, Dataverse does give you multiple types of storage, so SQL is all relational and it has a cost related to it. We have cheaper types of storage that are available for storing specific data types. So if you have files or you have log data, we can put them into cheaper storage that's also able to be accessed through Dataverse, but costs you less money in the long run. And also SQL requires a lot of specialized development skills that you may not necessarily have within your business. And so if you want to invest in putting the data directly into SQL, you may have to have a full developer that's able to build your apps on top of the functionality. But if you use Dataverse, you can always build the apps yourselves without having to have a full developer. Or you can also have a full developer that builds some apps on top of Dataverse with our advanced functionality. So speaking of advanced functionality, we have another question that comes up often, which is Dataverse just low code, no code? And the answer is no. It's sold that way in a lot of places because citizen developers want the ability to build apps on top of their data. And it's a fantastic way for people to be able to take management of their data into new directions. However, Dataverse has a lot of high code options that are meant for pro developers, so you can customize this any way you want. There's a lot of different functionality that we have here that covers things such as virtual tables, which lets you point to something like SQL, and it acts as if the data is part of Dataverse. You have solutions, which are part of our application lifecycle management, which allows you to have versioning and control over who's able to edit the app once you produce it. And there's many other options. I'm not going to speak about these in detail here because there's another build session that I've recorded about pro development options for Access users looking at Microsoft Dataverse. So if you check out that session, you'll be able to hear about all of these options and explain how they can be used to benefit you. So here's a diagram that shows you a lot of the functionality also that's available out of the box for Dataverse itself. And the one thing I wanted to call out here is there are a lot of the features that are in Dataverse that you can do in Access today. If you look at this diagram, any of the items that are marked in gray are features that both systems share, and you're able to accomplish this both in Access or in Dataverse. The items that are highlighted in blue, though, are additional functionalities you gain by putting your data into Dataverse and taking that next step to using your data in other ways. So this is a good way for you to evaluate, is putting your data into Dataverse worthwhile, because I want to have some of these other functionalities that I may not be able to achieve through Access.
Thanks, Nathan. Well, we hope you've enjoyed seeing a glimpse of the benefits that you can reap by combining Access with the low-code, no-code capabilities of Power Platform and Dataverse. As you saw today, this integration and ability to migrate your Access data to Dataverse unlocks new ways to keep your Access-based solutions modern and relevant in a cloud-centric world, enabling mobile solutions, added security and compliance with AAD, Teams solutions, and cloud client synchronization across different front ends, whether it's Teams, mobile devices, or other computers. So now that you know all that, we hope many of you will try our release and give us feedback. And here's how you can get started. First, point your phone to this QR code on screen or use the URL to go to our Access Power Platform website. And that gives you all the steps and details your organization needs to try the Dataverse connector built right into Access as part of Microsoft 365 this month. So both myself, Courtney, and Nathan want to thank you all for your time today. We hope you enjoy exploring what this can mean for your organization and how you could take your Access solutions into the cloud. Thank you.
Thank you.